In this video, the speaker will talk about politicians. Politicians, or political personalities, are defined as those who hold a position in state bodies at the level of central government or territorial body, and the exponent of the apparatuses of political parties with responsibility for representation and coordination or management of the party machine. This definition only defines what a political person is in theory, not in practice. In practice, political people are demagogues. Demagogy is a term of Greek origin that indicates a political behavior that, through false promises close to the wishes of the people, aims to win its favor for political purposes or to increase its popular consent or for the achievement or conservation of power itself, and of the maintaining the status quo. In this case, the speaker uses the term status quo with the meaning that everything must remain as it is. Nothing has to change. The life and psychology of citizens, the economy, the judiciary, etc., must always remain the same. There must be no qualitative change, because any qualitative change will question the foundation and principle of political people. Politicians all belong to political parties. Political parties are considered the foundation of democracy. Nothing could be more wrong. Political parties are the reason why democracy does not exist. In all democracies, citizens can only vote for people chosen by political parties. There is no possibility to vote for the person directly. Although in some so-called democratic countries it is possible to vote directly for the person. This person, independent of political parties, in fact, has no chance of victory. There is practically no difference between the democratic system made up of political parties and the old system made up of kings and nobles. On the surface, there is the difference that in order to come to power, political parties need the vote of their citizens, while historically kings and nobles were considered such by birth. But this, as the speaker said, is a superficial difference. By this, the speaker means that obviously king and nobles no longer exist. In fact, but there are people with enormous capital, or rather multinationals controlled by individuals or small groups of people who manipulate the media as they please. By manipulating the mass media, multinationals are able to get the people they want to go to the government. With public funding the political parties, multinationals are able to get the people they choose to be elected to parliaments. Multinationals, directly or indirectly, control our parliament, our government, and the media. The speaker considers the central banks of each individual country as multinationals. In fact, central banks are in the hands of individuals and not governments. So, where is the democracy? In our days, democracy is just a name that no longer means anything. People are only conditioned to use this name. They are conditioned to think that democracy is the only way to govern, and the politicians are people who care about the well-being of the citizens. There could be no more nonsense than this. Anyone who thinks that politicians and political parties care about the welfare of citizens is just naive. It is impossible not to see reality. Politicians only make their interest and the interest of the multinationals they represent, and thanks to which they enrich themselves. Many citizens have noticed the misrule on the part of politicians, which happens in all democracies. In fact, they no longer go to vote. These people have realized that there is no substantial difference for who you vote for. Things always remain the same. There is no difference which party comes to power. In fact, the people who go to vote in the various countries are generally about 70% of those entitled to vote. This means that those who rise to power represent just over a third of those entitled to vote. This is why modern democracies are called dictatorship of the majority, because the politicians who come to power have obtained the possibility of governing thanks to just over a third of those entitled to vote. This will allow politicians to govern without taking into account the views expressed by minorities. This way of governing certainly cannot be called democratic. The speaker here uses the term democratic in its true meaning, and that is a form of government in which power is expressed by the people through freely elected representatives. Political representatives and political parties are not freely elected due to the manipulation of the mass media, which nowadays have enormous power thanks to technology, and because of public funding by multinationals to political parties and the remuneration given directly to people in the government with the so-called consultancy. In practice, the consultancies are nothing more than legalized bribes. It is really absurd, but in government and in parliament there are often lawyers or managers who previously worked for multinationals. It also happened that people who had shares in companies worth millions of dollars found themselves sitting in the government of a country, even though this practice was deemed illegal by the state's own law. There is nothing that protects us from the dictatorship of politicians. Not the constitution, not judiciary, not the law, and not even the vote. We are in the hands of politicians, and this is the worst thing that could happen for the development of contemporary society. The people who go to vote do nothing but choose their jailer. By this, the speaker means that when you vote, nothing changes. The only difference is in the name of the one who will limit all our freedoms. Those in power do not want free people, because a free person is difficult to control. A free person always puts his own freedom above everything. For a free person, a life without freedom makes no sense to be lived. The speaker will share an analysis of the psychology of people entering politics. People who enter politics all suffer from an inferiority complex. In psychology, the inferiority complex is a condition of insecurity and low self-esteem that leads to an underestimation of one's possibilities in the most disparate fields, but which can give rise to aggressive and competitive behavior with which the individual tries to compensate and overcome one's inferiority. Exactly for this reason, those suffering from an inferiority complex go to politics to try to overcome this complex. Once in power, they will be able to have control over the lives of many people. The problem is that politicians are really psychologically inferior to the average man, so we find ourselves ruled by people with below average intelligence. Another problem with politicians is that they do not need any real preparation for the task they are going to perform. For example, if a person is called to serve as a minister of health, he or she does not need to be a physician or have any experience in this field. All he has to do is have a university degree and he can become the Minister of Health. So we will never find a real physician to be the Minister of Health, but we will probably find a person with a degree in political science to be the Minister of Health. Political science is a social science that studies the political phenomenon through the methodology of empirical sciences. Political science developed in Europe in the modern era through the work of Machiavelli. The term Machiavellian is synonymous with cynical, cold, and calculating. So political science rests its foundation on being cynical, cold, and calculating. These are the principles of the people who govern us. In a rational society, we should find the best person available in that field to be a minister or head of government. Certainly not a graduate in political science. This type of thinking is called meritocracy. Meritocracy is a system on evaluation and enhancement of individuals based exclusively on the recognition of their merit. In short, only the best people in their field should be ministers. With people like politicians making decisions about citizens' lives, people's psychological growth is not possible. From the moment we are born, the society governed by these politicians will do everything to not let us grow psychologically. It is just an exceptional fact that few people manage to escape their control and find freedom within themselves. When these people who have found freedom try to spread their ideas, society does everything to prevent the spread of these ideas. For this reason, the speaker spoke of politicians, because as long as we are ruled by politicians, there will be no chance for the growth of human awareness. Only a few people will be able to grow in awareness, but the goal remains that all people have the ability to decide whether to grow in awareness or not. Unfortunately, this freedom has never existed, neither now nor in the past. If a person wants to grow spiritually, he must do it against society, because society will do everything to avoid a person's psychological growth. Spiritual growth and psychological growth are the same thing. Because once all men have achieved awareness for society, there will be no more reason to exist. Thank you for listening.